You're good to read the script.
Okay, call the meeting to order. Thursday, May 7th, 2020, 7 p.m. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 18, the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Southborough Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the Southborough's website at www.southboroughtown, that's O-U-G-H, town.com. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so in the following manner: www.southboroughtown.com/remote meetings. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on Southborough's website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is for the continuance of public hearings, not for deliberation or action at this time in the hearings, but to move them out pursuant to a time that we hopefully will be able to have the public participate.
And so before we get started, I'm just going to do a quick roll call for who's here. So when I call your name, just say here. Watson.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Pete.
Here.
Geyer.
Here.
Gregory.
Here.
Pasamato.
Here.
And just confirming that Sherry Wittes is not with us, and I am Melissa Danza. So we're all set to move forward. Then if you want to do the first public hearing.
Okay. 7 p.m. continued notice of intent and stormwater management permit 16 to 18 Middle Road, map 54, parcels 19 and 20. In accordance with the provision of the Southborough Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, Southborough Zoning Code, Chapter 174, Section 13.5, Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Southborough Conservation Commission will hold a continued public hearing on Thursday, May 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. on the petition of Klein Family Realty Trust for an addition, new driveway, modifications to septic system, landscaping, and stormwater management at 16 to 18 Middle Road, map 54, parcel 19 and 20. These hearings are being held concurrently. We should discuss where we want to continue the meeting to, given the current state of emergency order and not knowing when it will be lifted. So 3 weeks would be May 28th.
Yep.
6 weeks would be June 18th.
Yeah.
And Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think by law we can continue to up to 45 days from the date the governor lifts the emergency order. So we could decide to do that, or move them to May 28th or June 18th. Now, in some ways, I'm thinking that, trying to keep it in June would be a good thing, since these are all continued, because we have some reappointments coming up, and assuming that somebody decides not to be reappointed, or the selectmen choose to not to reappoint them for some reason or whatever, we would have a new member or members that would not be able to participate in these hearings. So that's a little bit of a wrinkle.
So you would
Discussion?
advise June 18th we have a meeting at least, right?
Carl, you
Just to
broke
keep
up. I
going.
couldn't hear you.
So you're advising we have a June 18th meeting, so we keep some continuity.
I am.
Yeah. Sounds reasonable.
I mean, I honestly don't think May 28th is going to be doable. I just don't think it's going to happen. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but our numbers are still going up, and I just don't see it. If anybody else has opinions, speak up. But
I agree. Seems unlikely. I think you're right.
So I think, legally, we're supposed to continue to a date specific. Isn't that right, Melissa? So I guess I would look for a motion then based on that discussion to continue to Thursday, June 18th, 2020.
So moved.
Here a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I'll do the roll call. Hold on.
Yeah.
So
You want to see hands?
that was made by Ben and seconded by Carl, just to confirm, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so Watson,
Yes.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Passamatto.
Aye.
All set.
Give me a second. Okay, Park Central. Let's continue notice of intent. Park Central, 0 Turnpike Road, map 3341, 24, 25, and lots 4, 4A, 3, and 5. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Suffolk Conservation Commission will conduct a continued public hearing on Thursday, May 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent filed by the applicant and owner, Capital Group Properties, LLC, for a project located at 0 Turnpike Road, Park Central, maps 33, 41, 24, 25, and lots 4, 4A, 3, 5. The project description is construction of a mixed residential development with wetland and stream crossings, stream restoration, and associated road work, stormwater utilities and grading. Do I hear a motion to continue to June 18th, 2020?
So moved.
Take a second.
Second.
Second. Russ, yeah.
All right, so Russ second, and then roll call is Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Passamatto.
Aye. Okay, next is notice of intent, 12 McNeil Drive, map 45, lot 12. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southborough Wetlands Bylaw, the Suffolk Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, May 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 12 McNeil Drive, map 45, lot 12. The applicants Xiaomei Hang and Julin He. The project description is a septic system repair. Is there any urgency on this one, Melissa, where it's a septic system repair?
Not that I've heard, they haven't said anything about it, so either of the next one or this one, they haven't said that there's been any issue with continuing.
So they're still living there and using it, presumably, I guess?
I guess so.
Can we specifically ask them? I mean, it's
I
probably
I
not
kind
all-
of I have in my emails to Connor Stone being like, this is continued. Is anything, immediate? Is this an immediate need? And there hasn't been one.
The other thing to note with this particular address is it's it's across the street from the reservoir.
So,
Mhm.
The odd number of houses are on the right side of McNeil, the even number of houses are on the left, right? Yeah. My thought was if it was,
Right on it.
down, so there's a stream that comes down, like behind Falcone's and meanders its way through that neighborhood over there, and it comes out down by the cul-de-sac and crosses under. Right, Russ? That was the culvert that we were looking at?
That's all making sense to me now. Absolutely. Yep.
Right, that was your favorite culvert when they did some paving?
Yeah, right.
But I think the odd houses are on that side. I think the even houses are on the other side, but I'm not 100% sure. It's a guess.
So the only thing with this is it's keeping small contractors from getting some work going.
Yeah,
And generally those jobs are pretty isolated anyway, so I don't see what the net gain other than us permitting the thing is, gonna be a holdup on it. So my 2 cents.
Just to say, we can't do it tonight though, because we don't have any public comment availability on this webinar.
Yeah.
So we'd have to make another meeting.
No, that's fine. I understand that. I'm just throwing it out there.
Yep, no,
Melissa, do you know if this came about, for some reason, it sort of seems to me like it might be a Title V inspection issue. If they're still using the system, but sometimes it'll get flagged in a Title V inspection, the inspector will say you need to get this component repaired, even though the system still, from the user's perspective, still kind of works.
mhm.
Right,
So but I just want to make sure we're not holding up a property transfer or something like that either.
exactly.
I don't think so. That's what hasn't been made aware to me.
Okay.
But I can definitely reach out to Vito again. I mean, we could make it so that, we'll continue it to June 18th. But maybe condition it unless, earlier meeting is needed. I don't know how touchy that can be, but
I was going to say,
Yes.
I was going to suggest that if it is an emergency situation like that, like holding up a property transfer or something, it's a tough enough time already. I
Right.
can make time to, for a quickie meeting.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly, Ben. And, and it could be Title V or it could be, a health issue too,
Yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
so,
Yep.
and given the proximity of the reservoir, that's something we probably should look to address. And, Russ's comments are, valid comments too.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Melissa, if you could reach out to him and, find out what
Yeah.
the situation is, and if this is something that, we need to act on sooner than later, then we should, definitely consider that.
Okay.
Okay, we didn't do the roll call.
You didn't make a motion
Oh, sorry. Do I hear a motion to continue to June 18th, 2020?
So moved.
unless an emergency is needed.
Yes, yeah, unless
Yeah,
emergency
or-
is needed.
Jeff, did you motion? Sorry, I
Sure.
interrupted. There's a second.
Second.
All right, Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Dyer,
I,
Gregory,
Aye,
Pasamato.
Aye.
Okay, all set. And it'd be the same one for the next one because that's septic too.
Okay. Notice of
mean, are we-
intent.
I was just gonna ask, can we have a meeting where we have public hearings on these small issues without, enabling a public meeting of Park Central?
I think that's
Yes.
where it kind of gets dicey is do you really want to get into the picking and choosing?
Right.
But if we kind of make if we've already continued the other ones to June 18th, if we have a meeting before that, and those are the only two hearings on the agenda, then that's just what it is.
can the homeowner petition for a special meeting?
Great. No,
No?
I don't think so. I don't think they can make us necessarily meet for something. I mean, if it gets to a point, like if something in the septic epically failed, then it'd probably come under like an emergency certification than,
Yeah.
making us have a meeting.
Okay, notice of intent, 32 Boston Road, map 55, lot 70. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Southwell Wetlands Bylaw, the Southwell Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, May 7th, 2020, at 7:10 p.m. The commission will consider a notice of intent for a project located at 32 Boston Road, map 55, lot 70, for the applicant David Corbett. The project description is a septic system repair. So same discussion applies here.
Correct.
Okay.
It's the same engineers. That helps.
Oh.
so it occurred to me that one way to phrase the question to them is this project turnkey other than our holdup?
Right.
What do you mean by that, Russ?
Well, is it ready to go? Do they have a contractor lined up or just going, does this homeowner want to move on it?
Has the Board of Health approved it already?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check with Dennis.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, I'll do some, I know I talked to them when, this all first started at the end of March, so I'll kind of touch base back with both Vito and the Board of Health to see kind of where this stands with them.
Yeah, the Board of Health might be in more contact with the homeowner than we would be, right? Maybe.
Not necessarily. They usually
No.
deal with the contractors as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay, do I hear a motion to continue to June 18th, 2020?
So moved.
I hear a second?
Second.
All right. Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Pasamato.
Aye.
All right.
Okay, next up, we have a notice of intent. It's the bylaw only, 81 Breakneck Hill Road, map 21, lot 16. In accordance with the South Row Wetlands bylaw, the Suffolk Conservation Commission will conduct a public hearing on Thursday, May 7th, 2020 at 7 o'clock. The commission will consider a notice of intent for the project located at 81 Breakneck Hill, map 55, lot 70, for the applicant Max Geezy. The project description is construction of a new home and associated site improvements. Okay, do I hear a motion to continue to June 18, 2020?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Pasamato.
Aye.
All right. I think next
Okay.
up is minutes.
Minutes. So the first set of minutes is March 5th, 2020. Does anybody have any edits, revisions?
No.
They all look good?
Yeah.
All right, do I hear a motion to accept the minutes of March 5th, 2020?
So moved.
As written, I should say, as written.
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All right. Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Pasamato.
Aye.
We're gonna get really good at this, guys.
I thought we were doing well already.
Yeah,
I don't really want to get good at this, to be honest with you.
that's fair.
I want to stop this.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is the minutes of March 26th, 2020. Any edits, comments, corrections?
Look good to me.
Good, okay. Okay, do we hear a motion to accept them as written?
So moved.
I think Carl was, Ben, you second then?
Oh,
I'll second. Yeah, sure.
oh, okay, sorry.
Carl was louder. All right. Watson,
Aye.
Smith.
Aye.
Pete,
Abstain.
abstain. Okay. Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Pasamato.
Aye.
I don't
Okay, the
need
next
to
one.
do any, paperwork, right? Because everything was continued.
Correct. Yep, you're all set.
Next up is minutes from April 23rd, 2020. Any comments, corrections, edits on those? No?
No.
Okay, do I hear a motion to accept as written?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor then?
Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
Pasamato.
Aye. Okay, then we have an administrative change request for 13 Foley Drive, addition of decking. You have any color on that, Melissa?
Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen, hopefully. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so we approved basically the same thing except the addition of this deck right here. So this is the 100-foot buffer maybe can zoom in a little bit.
That's
So part of it's outside of the 100, but there is part of it in it. This was found when the building inspector went out to do one of her inspections, and the homeowner notified me and had this new plot plan that shows the location of where the deck actually is. So
Is anything there now?
there's the, like, they did the pool and the deck. So we permitted the pool in this location, and then they've just added the deck.
Oh,
So did they not realize they were gonna do a deck or?
You know, I
Here's the
thought
one
we
minute.
had discussed it during the public hearing and ensuring that there wasn't anything else going to be there. But I guess they had a last minute change.
If they came in and asked for the deck in isolation, it's the kind of thing we probably would have done through an RDA.
yeah, probably.
Yeah, so they have, well, they have the open NOI for the pool.
Um, It,
Yes.
yeah, I guess I would just say, if we did issue an administrative approval, maybe subject to, I don't know, you're not doing any field visits, right, Melissa?
No,
Those
I
aren't-
am. I
Oh, you
am.
are?
So I have gone out. I mean, they did it, everything was done while the erosion controls were in.
Okay,
So,
and
you know,
everything's been, it's all been
everything-
filled in, okay.
right. So everything's protected. You know, I guess they put the proper measures in place, just the backside of it getting approved prior was not done.
So this is basically an administrative order to show that the deck has been put on the pool.
Right, so, or
And-
it's like, it's updating the existing NOI for the approval of the pool. So when they do the COC, you know,
Right,
we were notified of the deck.
right. And the as-built will be shown as we're seeing, looking at it now.
Correct.
How do you get on the deck? Are there stairs?
I don't think those were done by the time I get home, but yeah, there is still, I think it's on this side.
It's out of the buffer zone, so
Yeah.
any other commentary? Anybody have an issue with it?
No.
I mean, I think, who was the engineer for this one?
I think they really just had like a surveyor kind of come out. So I
Surveyor.
think they had their surveyor, and then the environmental consulting group did the wetland edge. So it was kind of two different people. So
Right,
and then they had just someone else come in for the pool.
yeah. I mean, it may well be that the surveyor's not as familiar with how these permitting things work. I mean, maybe just, remind the applicant and also the surveyor that, any change should, just for completeness should be, included in their plans and notified to us, because then it just stops it having to come back and we have to make admin changes and it,
Yeah, and I did talk with the
smooth
homeowner about it.
and yeah, I mean, a smooth, efficient project, it's in their interest to kind of just add
Mhm.
everything at the beginning.
Yep, so I did follow back with the homeowner because he did have the surveyor come out right away and do up the plan for it. So the surveyor doesn't necessarily go out during the process, like sometimes an engineering group may, if they kind of are the representative for the project. So this is just kind of a simple above ground, but I did confirm with the homeowner that this was the only change that he has made and will make. So he's aware of that now, but I
Okay.
agree with you.
Good job. Thank you.
So do I hear a motion to issue the administrative change and update the order conditions?
I'll make the motion.
A second?
Second,
All right, Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete. Jeff, you're on mute.
Aye.
Okay. Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
aye,
Pasamato.
Aye. Okay, next up, request for certificate of compliance. This is DEP number 290-793. And it's a ORAD that's on file for Kane's Crossing. Melissa, you want to bring
Yeah,
it right to speed?
So this is, you know, an old order of delineation, which typically, you know, don't come back for COCs, but this one was recorded, so it shows up on a title search as they're now selling some of the units. And now the banks are kind of requiring it to be closed out, even though, you know, by default, an ORAD is confirming its completion. So I think this was before even it turned into the townhouses. I think this was when it was going to be single family houses, but you'd be issuing both a complete and there's like a specific one that says ORAD is now satisfied, which it's been expired for a few years now anyways, and it has a new wetland line. So it's
What-
really
what was
just
the date of that?
it was 2005.
That's what I was thinking. It was before my time.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, it was still Bartolini Builders who were thinking about it, but it was when the property was first, I think, thinking of being developed.
Right.
So, and it has, you know, obviously an active order on it. So it's
I
kind
think
of
back
a,
then, I think back
No,
then it was going to be houses,
yeah,
2 or 3 or 4 houses or something. And then that plan got scrapped. This one came about, then they came in front of us and, you know, there's an order of conditions on it now for what they're doing.
but this is just for the wetland delineation in 2005. So it's kind of a moot point closing it out, but it's what the banks are requiring. So here we are to
Now-
put something against it on the deeds.
Now, you're gonna be able to close this out and
Yes, so the motion that I would need would be to issue a certificate of compliance and authorize me to sign on behalf of the commission, you know, due to the COVID-19.
social distancing.
So moved.
Hey, any further discussion on this? All right, do I
Fine.
hear a motion to issue a certificate of compliance for this ORAD and to authorize Melissa to sign on behalf of the commission members?
So moved.
Yeah, a second?
Second.
Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye,
Pasamato.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, and then we have update on Chestnut Hill Farm Trails.
So just for the trails, you know, we've had really good success with people coming in the past couple weekends. We've had volunteers there. I think this might be our last weekend because in reality, we haven't really seen more than half the parking lot full. You know, sometimes there's a little bit more, but people are adhering to the ropes and the boundaries. And then you know, just keeping proper social distancing. So the farm crew has said everything has worked out well so far. After the first weekend, it was kind of difficult to understand that when you were coming back to the parking lot that you couldn't go straight. So I think they kind of fixed that up a little bit because I saw some people going what would be the Overlook Trail, trying to get back to the parking lot and then realizing that they couldn't actually get to the parking lot that way. So hold on there. Oh, and Sherry's just joined, just for the record, even though it says Angelica.
Oh,
I changed it. No, it's okay. I was like, I thought we were being Zoom bombed.
like, ooh.
Yeah.
Thank you for letting.
And then I think other than that, the only other thing that the commission should talk about that we put on the revised agenda was the proposed pig plans that the trustees had sent out.
So can I just let me say a couple of things about the
Mhm.
trail piece if I can. So I've done a couple of stints of volunteering up there. I totally concur with Melissa. you know, whether or not people just haven't realized yet that the property's open, or whether that is more of a normal kind of volume of activity. I mean, it definitely seems to be spread during the day, and most people are being, you know, pretty good about social distancing. You know, there's been a couple of situations with dogs being on the property that I've let Melissa know. One in particular that we euphemistically refer to as the poodle boy, who brings his very cute little poodle, and he's clearly does it on a regular basis because that dog knows exactly where it's going when it gets let off the leash. And so that one I think is kind of flagrantly flouting the rules. There's been a couple of others that I've spoken to when I've been up there, and they just don't see the sign. I think that's part of the problem. You know, it is a pretty small sign, but they left when I pointed out that they really shouldn't be there. So that was fine. At some point, I think we're going to have a conversation with the trustees, with DA and whoever else about the proposed trail changes. And I have a number of comments that, you know, that kind of pertain more to that, about, you know, where in effect there are, you know, there are more trails that are actually active on that property than are on the map. And it's what I would refer to as people creating herd paths. So they just go, and, you know, more people go, and you get what is, you know, just a path without it being a full trail. And I do have some other thoughts about trail maintenance, but I think it's probably, we may as well just wait for those, I think, and talk to the trustees when they come with their proposal to amend the trails. So do we want to talk about piglets?
Sure.
Yeah, did everyone get the email about the pigs that are at Chestnut Farm? I talked with DA again, and I sent out her definitions of piggeries and hog farming. They're actually going to be there for less time than she expected. They're only going to be there until June 1st, and they'll be in this kind of wooded area that they call the Gore, you know, just kind of grazing, and then, you know, once they're gone, they're gone. So
They're really gone.
they're really gone.
You read the thing, they're really gone.
Yeah, yes.
I
But
didn't
they
get her
are processed off-site. They won't be processed on Chestnut Hill.
I didn't get you said you sent the comments out from her. I didn't get them.
Okay. I think I put them on the Dropbox too, so I will put those
Oh,
on the
okay.
screen.
Yeah. Just a quick summary would be.
Yeah. So in terms of a piggery, you know, because in the prohibited acts, it says no commercial hog farming or a piggery. So in our commercial zoning code, a piggery is, what was it, 3 or more pigs that are, it's gonna go up.
I think zoning says 5 or more. I think zoning.
Yeah,
does.
for 5 or more. So, and they have to be a year older, or a year or older. So of course it's not coming up, but and then commercial hog farming was more of hogs of, you know, when you think of hogs, you think of the big pigs, and then they are processed and they live their full life on the farm. So these will just be there for a couple weeks. They're 4 and 5 months old, and then they will be gone by June 1st. And then, sorry, I'm using my personal computer instead of my work computer, because my work computer likes to crash in the middle of Zoom meetings. I thought I had it up there. And then she was reading through kind of the conservation restriction, in that, yes, so that one of the reserved rights is specifically allowing the grazing and pasturing of livestock. The swine we are raising are exclusively pasture raised and are managed based on current generally accepted agricultural practices for small scale pastured pork production. The pasture in question does not have open surface water and will not contribute to water quality problems, disturb sensitive areas, or discharge sediment, animals waste, or nutrients to surface water. On the contrary, the pasture in question and the planned swine management practice will improve both pasture quality and wildlife habitat and will support the development of additional open meadow pasture areas. The swine raised in the scenario would fall within the general category of livestock pasture and grazing activities, which are included in the farm plan. Further, pastured swine represent an ecologically and economically reasonable strategy for improving pasture areas and overall livestock and pasture management outcomes in areas of the farm with lower present value for both agriculture and habitat. Just as a great many other specific agricultural practices are not identified or highlighted on a line-by-line basis, pasturing swine represents a reasonable and responsible implementation practice for the overall scope and goals of the farm.
So, my reading of the CR is that, commercial piggeries specifically, they are enumerated and they're forbidden. They're listed under prohibited acts and uses. And what our zoning says about it, I don't really think is necessarily applicable here. The common definition of a piggery, if you look it up, I pulled out the dusty old Merriam-Webster's, and it's a piggery is a place where pigs are raised. And the intent of the CR was to not have pigs raised on the property for commercial purposes. So before I go any further, I got a couple of problems, but I also have a couple of solutions this time that I think can solve the problem. The reason I'm kind of making a little bit of a big deal about it is that these are rights that the town purchased. The property ownership is a bundle of rights, and a conservation restriction is a property owner selling off a portion of those rights. The town bought those rights, and it's our job to make sure that we hang on to those rights. Ultimately, they are rights in real property, and the disposition of rights in real property, if we were to sort of give the rights back away, we can't do that without the approval of town meeting. So in terms of I think there's actually a prohibition against piggeries that would prevent this. And also there was there was a mention of some fencing papers that was, I'm not sure if it was proposed to be put in or is actually put in. This is actually a little bit more of a big concern to me. So I'm going to quote right from it's from the next section, the allowed uses. And of course, they're allowed to put in fences with some conditions, but subject to prior notice, the placing of site pervious fences that do not interfere with the passage of wildlife to, from, through the premises, or with the purposes of this conservation restriction. So they're allowed to with prior notice. Notice is defined in section 6, and among other things, it says whenever notice is required, grantors shall notify grantee in writing not less than 45 days prior to the date grantors intend to commence the activity that's subject to notice. The notice, will describe the nature, scope, design, location, timetable, and any other material aspect of the proposed activity. It goes on, and then finally, failure of the grantor to notify grantee as described and required, constitutes a material breach of the conservation restriction, which tells me that the drafters of the CR and the town, when it purchased it, thought that this was a pretty serious issue. So first, those are my concerns with it, but I think there's a really easy solution here. You may recall, it's 4 or 5 months ago now, a number of us went to the Board of Selectmen meeting to beg for an assistant for Melissa. And as part of that, I put together a little presentation where I just listing all the things that Melissa does and could do. One of the things I did was I was poking around at what open space falls under our purview that Melissa helps us keep track of. I just was looking through this this issue, and it just sort of came back that Chestnut Hill Farm is actually bigger than the chunk that we have a CR on. In fact, across Chestnut Hill Drive on the west side, there's a 40-acre chunk of land that is in fact owned by trustees of reservations. And it has a CR on it, but it's not held by us, it's held by SVT. And my understanding is that that CR is much less restrictive than the one that we purchased for $5 million. And then secondly, Melissa, is there any way to share my screen so that people can see this? I actually have a,
So I will make you a co-host and you should be able to share your screen. Can you do it now?
how do I go
Think you
about it?
At the bottom, there should be a share screen. It's like a green button.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
Share screen. There we go. Share.
Then you have to pick the document you want to share.
There we go. Can everyone see this map?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so this is the farm. I'm going to zoom out a little bit here. Now, if we continue northwards, the place I'm highlighting right now, this is the subdivision that we approved about 2 years ago. It's now in the process of being built. I'm sorry, my aerial photos are out of date. There's another parcel. I'll turn off the wetlands here. This parcel right here is 23 acres. You can see as I zoom in here, there's a farm road that goes from here. It crosses the aqueduct, and that's a piped aqueduct at that point, and continues up to a circle around here, turning on the all the wetlands. You can see there's a great deal of upland area up here. Now this parcel is also owned by Chestnut Hill Farm, excuse me, by trustees of reservations, but it doesn't have a CR on it. It simply has a covenant that prevents development, is my understanding. I think they have a couple of areas where they're able to put in fence at a whim with no prior notice. And in fact, that 45 days required notice under our CR, you know, that takes them pretty close to the date they were talking about taking the pigs out anyway. And it solves the whole issue whether pigs are allowed or not, because then, you know, it's something that doesn't even have to be addressed. They've got, I think, two great choices. How do I unshare? Stop share. There we go. So I think they've got two great choices that eliminate all question of CR compliance. That's what I've got. Oh, one last thing. The gore that they're talking about, you know, at the northern end of it, that actually is buffer zone to adjacent wetlands. I don't know how far they're proposing to go into that gore area, but I think they've got a couple of options that, you know, solve that entirely.
So the trustees just put the pigs in a truck and brought them over?
Yeah, they did it on Sunday. I
Oh, they're
was
here.
there.
They're
Well,
here now?
they did it. Oh,
They're
they're
there
there
now.
now. The pigs are there. Yeah. So I was there. When was I there? I was there. There was one day I walked in the evening. Maybe it was a week or so ago.
Yeah, I think you went on Sunday.
Yeah, but I've been in an evening. I've been in an evening and I went back, I kind of went down the back where you're not really meant to go, just to see what was happening down there, because I'd seen Melissa's note about it. And they were actually putting up fencing. And then I went back again on Sunday late afternoon, and the pigs were already in there. They just brought, and I'm pretty sure they must have brought them in that day, because 3 of the little darlings were sitting in the back of a trailer, not actually too keen on going into the gore. And then the rest of them were kind of hanging out in the gore. And I went back this afternoon and they're all there. I mean, it's
How
a very,
many were there? How many?
I would say there was at least on Sunday, I mean, I'll show you a couple of photos. Can you share, make me share? I would say there's 10, 8 to 10. Wait a minute, hang on. What is my... Here we go. Am I sharing? No.
Nope.
Nope.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. Yeah, probably don't want to see all my other photos, but hang on.
I have my email up with those pictures if you just want me to open that.
Well, you guys bring that up, I can give my 2 cents. And I'm not sure how concerned I am about the pig per se, given the limited duration and probably limited impact. I do share, significantly Ben's concerns about the procedural aspects and the fact that, this is not the first time in the last couple of weeks that they're clearly not following the protocols called out for in the CR and not consulting us when they do things. So I'm more concerned that there is sort of a culture of not worrying about the interests of Southborough and the commission as they go about their daily business. And I think, I don't know what the best way to remedy that is. I don't know that it's necessarily to draw a hard line on the pigs or any one thing in particular, but I certainly feel like something needs to be done.
I mean, I actually concur with Jeff, because it does feel as though they're always trying to play catch up here. And I think, if we were to have a broader conversation about the trails, I think we'd have this, we'd have a similar situation. This is the, oops, oh God. No, I've lost it again. Okay, so, lordy. How do I hide that? Hang on.
Just while you're looking
Okay.
through this. Oh,
So
sorry.
this is looking with the farm behind, looking up into the gore. So you'll see it's, that is this, you can see it's the widest end of the triangle, and that's the wider end of the triangle. That's the fence they put up. That's the feeder bin and I guess a water trough thing. This is just a part of where they're living. I mean, it's, it's not exactly very hospitable for little piglets, but there's the piglets in the back. Oh, and then this is just this might not, yeah, this is just a video view of it, looking back up to the farm, so.
So just to clarify something, my concern isn't the ecological impact of the pigs, because frankly, I don't think there's a negative ecological impact from them. There may even be a positive. It's the CR that to my mind anyhow, and I guess there's probably room for disagreement here, but to my mind, it does forbid the pigs, and we simply aren't empowered to give away that right that the town purchased. Just from a procedural standpoint, because it's an interest in real property, it needs a 2/3 vote at town meeting. And because it's a right protected by a CR, it needs an act of the legislature to give away this right, okay, even for a limited period of time, if you really want to sort of drill down. Now, if the pigs stay there, is somebody going to drag us into court to straighten all this out? I really don't think so. But, I feel that we should enforce the CR in the same way that we enforce the Wetlands Protection Act, the Wetlands Bylaw, the Stormwater Bylaw, you know, with the same, we're careful to enforce our regulations uniformly and to the letter of the regulation, because that's the way that we can be fair, by doing it the same way in every instance. And it's my feeling that we should take that stance also with the CR. And I'm starting to, you know, I recognize that Jeff pointed out there's a pattern here, and I feel like we're losing our grip here on some duties that I feel we have under the CR.
I think there definitely is a behavioral pattern here that is not taking the, you know, the words written in the CR, you know, seriously. This is the second time in, you know, a month and a half that, you know, there's been some action taken by the trustees of the reservation that are in violation of what the CR has in it. And it seems with the pigs is they plan on bringing the pigs, brought the pigs, put the fence up and say, hey, we brought some pigs, but they're only gonna stay here for a little while, so we don't really need to worry about it. They'll be gone by June. No, to your point, Ben, they needed to notify us 45 days in advance of doing anything like that, and pigs clearly aren't allowed per the CR whatsoever.
The fencing also, there's a section about fencing that, you know, it's another, again, the fence, is it impactful? Well, it's not super impactful, but there is a section devoted to it. So the writers of the CR and the purchasers of the CR felt it was serious enough to really memorialize in the document.
Yeah. Yeah, and I tend to agree with you, Ben, that I don't think that the ecological effect of the pigs and the fence is negative in any way. Actually, it might be better for that area and cleaning it up and, you know, rubbing around and eating the stuff that's there. But you know, again, I think there's a pattern here that is not a good one.
I mean, I think, you know, I read the PA Hayden's original note, Melissa, which was more about how good it is for the pigs than for the farm. And then Mike Francis's note, which focused much more on the language of the CR and why this wasn't what the CR, you know, explicitly prohibits. And I guess, you know, it feels a little bit like the last time where, you know, it just becomes a matter of semantics to them, and they'll kind of try and, you know, use that, you know, use their interpretation as an alternative to ours of what's in the CR. I mean, I think it just doesn't, I don't know, I can't quite describe it. It just doesn't pass my sniff test this right now. You know, it's kind of, well, what else is going to happen that, okay, yeah, there's been a big, you know, the rationale as well as been, or it's not even the rationale, it's like the excuses. Well, there's been a big run on, you know, meat and vegetable CSAs. Well, of course there has, because it's COVID-19 and, you know, it got reported on WBZ that the trustees had these amazing farms and you could get fresh meat. So of course there's going to be a run on it, but I don't think that's enough of a reason not to be, you know, anticipating what might happen in the planning and you know, taking that into account with the CR. So, I mean, I kind of feel as though, I mean, I like Ben's suggestion of well, here's the solution, although it's probably only going to be a couple of weeks. And, you know, I fear that there may be, you know, enough dragging of feet because they're already there that they'll say, oh, you know, we can't move it and we, you know, don't have the resources to put the fencing up or whatever. But I do think, as we talked about in the last meeting, I think we need a bit of a come to the table and let's have a robust dialogue about the CR. And if that, requires us to, to have some sort of summary that's in user speak as opposed to CR speak, because I have to say it's quite, it's not that easy a document. For me, it's not that easy a document to read. Something that says, here are the things that you definitely can't do without our notice, and here's the notice you need to give us.
I won't run off at the mouth again. The land management plan, I think, is the document you might be thinking of that puts it into
Yeah, I couldn't
much more
find that.
understandable. You
find-
know what? It's tricky to find. It takes a lot of Googling to actually stumble across it. I have a copy that I can. Melissa, do
I'll
you
put
have a
it
copy?
on the Dropbox as well. I thought I'd sent it out, but I'll make sure it's on the Dropbox.
I think they have to come in to update that anyhow. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
that
was right.
conversation, Judith, I think
Right, that was
that would be the
yeah.
time to have the conversation and to memorialize it in the land management plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, the current, just so everyone knows, the current management plan is on the Dropbox under the Chestnut Hill little section. So if you want to look at that, you can.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, that's my bad. I was looking.
No,
on the
it's fine.
website. I was looking on the website, not on the. I found the conservation restriction on the website,
Yeah.
not the land management plan. Okay,
Can
yeah.
they both
yeah.
be on the website, actually? Can we put them both on the website?
Yeah.
Can I interject just a minute? It appears to me that we come to the, from what I read briefly some of the things that Melissa had sent out about the pigs, and I got the opinion that they think it's fine to have pigs there, right? That they think it's okay, even under the conservation restriction, to have them there. That's the opinion I've drafted in there, and we're saying, no, it isn't, right? So we've got two camps essentially, right? Now, sometimes in the past, we may need a referee, and maybe we could use SVT as because they have an expertise in conservation restrictions to look at this and help us decide, figure out who they think is correct, right? I listen to Ben. Ben's argument's very good. I mean, I think he's got it, but it's going to turn into a kind of a battle without a referee. In the middle
An
of this.
interesting side note, Carl, the person who actually drafted the CR, if you recall, when we were going through the golf course, and I think also a Halloran property, Krista Collins from SVT came in to speak to us.
Yeah,
She was the one who drafted the CR when SVT was hired as a contractor to help, gather input and put the various drafts together. She was the one who wrote it.
yeah, and we use
SVT has a lot of knowledge about this CR.
we use them to monitor this site, right?
So, yep. And Carl, I did talk to SVT.
Oh, okay. Good.
And so I typically talk to someone named Krista who always talks to Kristen, who talks to Krista. And when they were reviewing it, their view of a piggery is, the raising of pigs, I think, like Ben stated, and they kind of said, well, the land that we have the CR on doesn't say anything about pigs, so they could easily just go across the street and, put them there. So that was kind of really their only comment that they had at that, at this time. And I think in terms of the pigs, I think their statement or their feeling right now is that the pigs are fine as long as they're temporary. So I think they understand that they can't have a full-time pigs at the property,
Yeah.
but I think they're taking more, not in like defense of it, but their stance.
I understand. That's the
Where
right.
I've talked to them,
That's the
that
right-
it's
right.
that they're not on the commercial side of it, they're not raising pigs, they just need a temporary space for them to go. Which I think the intent, talking with Krista and Kristen, the intent of the CR was that the town didn't want pigs on the property. She thought it might have been because of the smell aspect at that time, and that was really more of a long-term, like everyday pig raising and farming, not kind of this temporary housing and then going. But, it still, it still stands there that there are other areas that, they could go. And I did ask, have you thought about different areas? And they hadn't kind of responded to that comment. So, I think in any response that we do, whatever way it is, we can reiterate that there are other areas that they should explore, outside of the CR that, have an obvious allowance of these pigs, whether temporary or permanent.
I mean,
My-
response could be just, we don't agree with your interpretation and they're just not allowed. So what are you gonna do? You know,
My interpretation of what they were doing here was, oh, we need a temporary spot. Here's a good spot. We'll just bring it in. We'll tell the commission, we're just gonna have some pigs here for a few weeks. We'll take them away and we let them know it's all good. They're not gonna be permanent. We're not gonna, raise them, months and months and months and months.
Yeah.
But the CR is pretty clear
Yeah.
that they're not allowed.
Yeah.
Not even for a day.
Well,
So-
what do we,
And it's also the issue, like this similar one with I think they call it the hoop house they came in, right?
Yeah.
It came up that they wanted to put that in for growing things in the winter, right? And we were concerned, we were okay with one, but we on that case, we just limited them to one because we were afraid that they could put in 20 of these things. Same thing could happen with the pigs. I mean, we let them use this section. Next year, they might find it's very profitable, right? And want to do 3 or 4 sections, right? So we probably should hold the line here, I think.
And then what does temporary really mean? Bring
Yeah,
the pigs in for 3 or 4 weeks,
Yeah.
and 2 months later, they bring them in for 3 or 4 weeks? 2 months
Right,
later, They do the
right.
same thing? I mean,
oh yeah,
No.
yeah,
they're not allowed, they're not allowed.
yeah. It's the old analogy of the camel's nose under the tent, which most people don't know what that is all about. But people know that expression, camel's nose under the tent. Nobody knows that one, right?
No.
All right, I'll tell you that one sometime.
Sorry, Carl.
It's a joke. It's a long joke, but it's very funny. Yeah.
I mean,
So I think, Ben had some good suggestions of where they could move them to.
is it
Judith's
practical?
concern is a valid one, that they may drag their feet until they remove them versus moving them.
I'd like to make the point with them that if they had come to us beforehand, as required by the CR, but if they had, that gives us the chance to work as partners to come up with solutions to these problems, like with the hoop house. They came to us beforehand and we figured out a way to make it work because we worked together as partners. It wasn't this sort of unilateral, ask for forgiveness rather than permission kind of thing. Actually, they're not even asking for forgiveness.
I am disappointed though, based on the conversation we had a few weeks ago with respect to the closing and reopening of the trails, that we're having this conversation here tonight.
Hmm.
That does disappoint me, because it sounds like the discussion we had fell on deaf ears.
Is there anything in the conservation restriction that allows us for not remediation, but for if it's a failure, what we can do?
There is, Carl. There's a section in there about dispute resolution, and unfortunately, it's very clunky. And especially during what's happening right now, we can be virtually guaranteed that the dispute resolution procedure would take us well beyond June 1st. But anyhow, it's mediation by an arbitrator licensed by whatever the Association of Mediators. It's we pick together, and it's a loser pays kind of scenario.
Yeah.
And picturing that wrapping up prior to June 1st just doesn't seem realistic. But my suggestion would be that the commission agreeing, of course, as a predicate to this, but we notify them that we find that there's been a violation of the conservation restriction, specifically with regards to a commercial piggery being on the property, because it is commercial, because they're gonna slaughter these pigs and sell them. So that's, to me, that's commercial. They're gonna sell it. And secondly, regarding the fences, which have their own section in the CR, we tell them that this it has to be rectified soon. I think we should talk about maybe a deadline for that, and I think we should also talk about we recognize that there are these other possibilities that would help you meet your goals while still respecting the conservation restriction. If somebody else has another idea, by all means, that's just what occurs to me.
I think that's a good suggestion. Anybody else have any other suggestions? Agree, disagree?
Just to be clear with that notification, are we giving them some kind of a timeline? Or are we actually asking them to move the pigs before June? Or are we just sort of accepting that the pigs are going to be there because it's, not so far away? And basically this is a means to get them to come in front of us and have a nice long conversation about how we want to move forward.
I mean, I think we tried that approach previously, and we all came away from that meeting thinking that, I had different plans or whatever, but I left that meeting thinking that we had made progress, from sort of a relationship perspective, that this wasn't going to come up immediately for our next meeting. So, my feeling, certainly happy to be overruled on it, is that that we asked for the pigs and fencing to be removed, but with the suggestion that they use these easily available alternatives that are already a part of the farm.
So Ben, I have a quick question. The section in which the fences are, it says that it's not allowed that's within the farmstead area.
Site permeable.
Right?
Here.
Oh, never mind. I was looking at the allowed uses.
Yeah, so it's under
does-
section 5, additional reserved rights to the grantors are applicable to the entire premises. And
Yeah.
it's item number 5, no, excuse me. Item number 4, subject to prior notice, the placing of site pervious fences that do not interfere, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Because now that I kind of think about it, they often move fences when they change spaces in which the animals are grazing that day, because they are kind of that removable mesh, not mesh, but flexible electric fencing. It's just something to,
So now that, I'm glad you brought that up. So now that's something, that type of movable fencing, there's a phrase for it, and I can't think of what it is, but
and
something
that's what that fence is that they're using for the pigs.
Oh, it looks from Judith's picture, it looked like it was a galvanized woven
No.
wire. But
No.
regardless, that can be taken care of easily in the land management plan. We can approve the land management plan.
Right.
Will describe, the fencing operations, and I think that satisfies the CR.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of circle back to that, because if we're going to go down that rabbit hole, it's throughout the property that they use it.
So it's no pigs and don't do it again, right?
When is the management plan due to be revised?
This year.
This year,
This year? Okay.
every 5 years, and the last revision is dated 2015. I don't have the date any closer than that, but
Yep, that's the last one.
Are we obligated to do it every 5 years, or could we have it bi-yearly? Or every 2 years? 5 years seems to be a long time if we're already 2 months into having 2 different problems.
I think
you know what?
years?
I'd have to look a little more deeply into the CR. I can't answer that question specifically.
I think the 5-year stipulation is agreed upon in the management plan. So I think technically it could be sooner, but I would have to double check too.
Yeah. I mean, I like Sherry's idea of looking to make that one of the changes in this land management plan update, is to say, every 2 years, because you can have it to be updated every 2 years and, review it and go, well, actually, there's nothing that needs to be changed. But given how much the trustees have changed their business model in the last 2 years, or 2 or 3 years, I think that's a really good suggestion, because 3 years ago when I first used those trails, they were very basic trails with little blazes, and now we've got signs and storyboards, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that that's not necessarily a good thing, but we've got changes to the trails, we've got all of those events that are happening on the farm, all great to make it more accessible to the general population, but it does make it feel as though we want to be reviewing their business strategy on on a more regular basis with them. And I think because my sense is their business strategy is one of the key things that should be informing the land management plan.
We required it yearly on the golf course.
Right.
We didn't call it a land management plan, we called it something different, but we required a management plan to be submitted to us every year. And even if we just met with the trustees, even if they came in once a year or somebody from the farm, just so that we can sort of touch base and maintain contact as a commission. Because also, I think it should be noted, so Melissa, especially with everything going on, has been sort of left on her own to deal with these entire issues. And I feel bad that as a commission we weren't as able as we normally would be to sort of give her some backup. And I think if we met more frequently, that would be a more of an option. So I really agree with Judith and Sherry, like you said.
Well, we could change it to the management plan being revised every 2 years, but them having to come yearly just to update us. Or
Yeah.
maybe 6 months if we're gonna have an issues, like, okay, every 6 months you gotta update us, and then
Didn't I hear that it's in the conservation restriction, that it's a 5-year? period?
I haven't found that, but
No, I think it's probably in the maintenance plan,
oh, is that-
Yeah.
management plan.
Yeah.
Probably states in there when it has to be updated.
I actually like that idea even more, Sherry, because they could come in the winter, in the down season, and say this is what we're planning for the spring, summer, fall season, and then they come or they come in the late summer and say okay, or after Labor Day and say okay, this is how it went.
Yeah, I've got a few properties in town that do that in Westboro where they just update us. We have management plans and what that get renewed, but every 6 months or a year, they come in and just update just to keep the continuity. And because you have staff changeover, you have people move, things do change, so we'll work with you.
So I found the section in the CR about the management plan. It's just one paragraph. I'll read it really quickly. It's gonna be new to me as much as everybody else. The management plan shall be prepared by the grantors in consultation with grantee and shall be reviewed every 5 years and upon change of property ownership and updated or revised as necessary as described in said management plan. The management plan and subsequent updates or amendments shall be submitted to grantee. Said management plan shall be reviewed and updated if necessary within 90 days upon each change of land ownership with direct consultation and input of landowner and grantee. Grantors reserve the right to close the trails from time to time for purposes of maintaining public safety or to protect agricultural crops, wildlife, in consultation with grantee. And the grantors' activities permitted pursuant to this section shall impair or frustrate permitted access by the public, except for temporary periods necessary to ensure public safety or protect agricultural crops or wildlife. So it sounds like we can, within the management plan, update or revise as necessary as described in said management plan. I think that gives us the ability, with the agreement of, trustees would have to agree to this, but if we could agree together as a partnership that clearly we need more communication, and then we can do it.
I mean, it seems like if they were actually following the CR and the management plan, they would have to come in front of us every 6 months or even more frequently to ask for the various things that they're going to do. If every time they want to change a fence or change a trail in some way or do all these things that we're talking about, seems like they would want to come in front of us.
Because it hasn't been happening, I guess, trying to think of ways to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay, so how are we
Okay.
gonna respond to the pigs?
What was that, Carl?
Pardon?
I was just bringing us back to responding to the pigs. We're off talking about reviewing the management plan.
Yeah.
The real question was the pigs. And I was thinking that, we're gonna respond with, no, the pigs aren't allowed, right? We don't agree with you, right? And I would say, no, the pigs aren't allowed. Essentially, don't do it again, right? And if, sorry about that. That's the phone going off. And and if, probably we should put in, if this continues, we're gonna go to arbitration, which is what the CR says. I mean, does that sound unreasonable?
The only thing I would add is, I would ask that the pigs be moved and that we give them a deadline because we're asserting our rights under the CR. But I don't want to make it onerous in any way. The figure in my mind was, from the date that we give them notice, 2 weeks to the fence is designed to be moved and pigs themselves can be moved. It seems like 2 weeks. It seems like something that wouldn't be onerous to them, seeing as how it's within their holdings right there at the facility.
Do you want to give them the suggestion and either move the pigs in that 2 week time or set up a meeting with us to explain why you can't or won't or choose to think that they're allowed? Because isn't that one of in the legal remedies, they can petition us to say why they think their event is allowing them to use whatever we disagree with.
Excellent point. Coming right back to the,
It's on page 10, I think.
oh yeah, you're right, there it is. Call a meeting for the purpose of resolving disputes or problems arising under the conservation restriction. And each party shall make every reasonable effort to resolve problems or disputes to the satisfaction of both parties. Fantastic. So we should, if we do that, we should say in our, our notice to them that if they wish to avail themselves of their rights under section 7, paragraph B, please contact our agent and we'll get you, on our agenda for the next meeting.
Which is in June.
Oh, which is,
Well,
after the.
no, that's what we continued the hearings to, right?
Yeah.
I
Right,
mean,
but that
other
doesn't-
things may come up
Well,
between now and then, like this, that we
Yeah.
need to deal with.
Right, but that doesn't stop us looking for a special meeting, does it? No?
No,
No?
We have a
Not at all.
special meeting.
I'm having 2 in this month for Westboro.
Yeah.
Stuff's come up, so. As long as we could get a quorum, I don't think it's an issue.
Yeah.
right.
I'll be there.
We need a quorum and we need to post it as a public meeting and we can set the agenda and post it with enough advance notice and we can hold a meeting.
Or do we want to push them if it has to be within the next week? I mean, if they
Well,
delay, it'll be June 1st before you know it, yeah.
Well, I think the choice I heard was, you can either remove the fence and the pigs and put them someplace where pigs are okay to go.
Yeah.
Or if you don't agree with that, then, we can have this meeting that Sherry pointed out in the CR. And we can have that discussion
Yeah.
and try to resolve it in some way.
I think that's the best we could do.
You're muted, Melissa.
Muted.
I muted myself instead of unmuted. I think the option should be, so the two, either remove the pigs 2 weeks from the date of, I email them, so tomorrow probably, or within, 7 days, notify us if you believe this is, against your belief and want to have a meeting. Because
Yeah.
I think give them the full 2 weeks and then come say, oh, we want a meeting. Well, that'll be a Friday. So it wouldn't be till Monday that we could think about having even the 48-hour notice.
Yeah.
So that would be pretty much by June 1st at that point. So I would definitely do 2 weeks, have them off, and then 1 week to let us know.
If they want to
Sounds
meet,
right.
Or shorter than 1 week, but
Yeah.
Sounds right.
within a week, yeah.
yeah.
Sounds good.
So moved.
All right. Who seconds?
Second.
All right. Hold on. My names are up at the top. Watson,
Aye.
Smith. Did you say yes, Ben? Sorry, I couldn't hear
Yes,
you.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay. Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
I,
Gregory, Wittes,
Aye.
Pasamato.
We're on a last name basis now, I guess.
I moved from
Uh,
first to last. I thought I'd switch it up a little bit, keep you on your
Yeah,
toes.
yeah, yeah.
Just
We're
for
a classy
clarification,
organization.
Yeah. Um,
question. Will the note we send them discuss the fencing as well, or just the pigs?
I thought she said fencing.
I think, I can still include it, but I think with a hard get the pigs out, I think that's pretty self-explanatory, but I will make it kind of a reference.
Yeah.
I think the fence and pigs go hand in hand, don't they?
Well, yeah, that's so.
In this case,
Pigs go, fence goes.
Yeah, that's clear. It's just, do we need to inform them if they're not already aware that placement or changing of fencing requires notice in addition to the pigs requiring notice and approval and not being allowed?
Yeah.
That there's two potential issues that have happened.
Yeah, I can include that. I think what I was going to do is include that and then kind of a note on what we were thinking about for the management plan as well, in terms of, it may be a reoccurring issue. We realize that you may be moving these types of fences elsewhere. So, as we update our management plan, you should be made aware that maybe this needs to be called out in that plan.
Good.
they probably need a reminder that that management plan is up this year.
They do, they know.
Okay.
Because I think we talked about it at the last meeting too. So they've got it on their to-do list.
Okay.
All right.
Anything
so,
else?
Yeah, the last two things, we revised it to add MACC and sent out an email about the potential new legislation regarding mosquito control. And they've kind of put out a call as they typically do when this type of legislation comes out. And basically, they're asking commissions to review it and potentially send letters to the committee that's looking at this and approving it. They said by May 11th or 12th, so it is coming up. And I think I sent it out, but to go over it briefly, they're stating that it's an act to mitigate arbovirus in the Commonwealth. And their main claims that this act is doing is that it's overly broad, that it doesn't necessarily have an end date. It doesn't have a lot of oversight and kind of who has comment on it. And then it doesn't have a requirement for notifications before spraying. So, they're thinking that municipalities should be notified, the public should be notified to minimize exposure to chemicals for citizens and animals, and to help decrease the risk to humans. And then their next bullet is there's no transparency on the decision-making process. There's no discussion on what the triggers are for requiring the spraying. So, there's nothing really a set criteria of, okay, it has to meet X, Y, and Z before we spray. And then inadvertent impacts from spraying are not considered. So there's no information on the efficacy of the widespread spraying to stop the spread of arbovirus or consideration on the negative impacts to pollinators and other beneficial species. It's talking about some of the studies that UMass Amherst has had about the toxicity of pesticides to pollinators and beneficials, and then, impacts to people who may grow their own food. And then that the Mosquito Control Board should be required to confirm that pesticides used for mosquito control activities do not contain per and polyfluoroalkyl compounds, alkyl. And then they have their kind of suggestions that they would like it to be added, including adding the Department of Public Health and Fish and Game to the Reclamation Board, 48-hour notification to communities prior to spraying, transparency in the process, and requiring annual reporting of mosquito control plans, programs, and results in an annual public review process, requiring the use of an integrated pest management plan, and enabling communities to receive surveillance services to monitor for mosquito-borne diseases without having to sign up for pesticide applications. So that's kind of a lot of words for what they're trying to do, but they sent out kind of the letter asking communities, basically to copy, they sent out a draft as well of kind of the same letter that they did, that, you can pick and choose if you want to take something out. Or if you want to take the same thing, put your name in it and send it in. So there've been a couple requests for us to talk about it. So that's why we're here. I guess, did anyone have thoughts on it?
That's why we don't have any fireflies, because this is a broad spectrum pesticide and it killed off all the fireflies. I saw one last year.
I think you did better than I did.
Yeah, they used to be everywhere.
You can come to Rutland. I have a lot.
You have a lot?
So Ben, you can go to Rutland and catch them and bring them back home.
Yeah, there we go. I want my kids to be able to see them. I remember when I was a kid, I mean, our yard would be full of them, and they didn't see any last year. I saw one. They didn't believe me when I told them there was a such thing as a firefly that actually glows.
That's so sad.
I for one think it's kind of crazy that they can come and spray over you without telling you. And you know, you could be outside, your pets could be outside, your kids could be outside, be growing food. I don't know. To me, I don't like the spray without notice or without, you know, very defined product specifications for, you know, how bad the triple E has to be before they do the spraying. I'm certainly in favor of having the letter written.
Well, I'm going to abstain from any conversation of this particular matter because we had a family member come down with triple E last year, and
And it's tough. It's a tough issue.
it is.
It's a very tough issue.
So I'm going to abstain from the discussion.
So
Does
I
anyone
didn't-
else have some other comments? I guess, you know, whether you're in favor, not favor, just general comments about it.
It's vague. Did you read it? The
It-
actual.
It's just, it seems like it's so broad brush. I mean, maybe I should read it some more, you know, but it's such a, you know, an open-ended.
In line. It was-
And another big issue is that it didn't have a sunset clause, you know, so there's not like when the threat's over, they're gonna stop. This would be, you know, in the laws.
Yeah.
So without that, you know, requirements, you know, it's difficult to say when this would end, or, you know, if they need to do it every year, what's that determining factor is the real problem that a lot of people are having with.
And it doesn't target a specific reason they need the spray, right? It just says if we think we need to, we can, right? It doesn't say like we need to spray. It isn't written specifically for triple E, right?
It's for,
They engage in preventative and eradicated methods as deemed
yeah,
necessary.
As they deem, yeah. I mean, they could launch a war against Lyme disease, right?
Geared toward. You're absolutely right.
I think MACC is going for just transparency and disclosure, and to make sure everything is on a scientific basis for the application of these chemicals. So, you know, I support the MACC stance on it.
Yeah.
It's not like they can't spray now, right? I mean, there was a ton of spraying last year, right? Like you could hear the planes going over our houses.
Just- They can spray without telling us.
yeah. So last year, you know, I think this is what's, you know, bringing this forward. I'm sure not for the first time, not for the last time. You know, what the state went through last year with triple E and, you know, the increase of ticks populations and stuff like that has really brought this forward and saying, okay, we need a mechanism that if we have this big triple E burst again, that we can spray and we're ready, you know, there'll be more of a definitive plan in place, you know, instead of just kind of the, oh gosh, we got to do it, like what happened last year. But even last year we were notified. So, you know, it's even in a crisis, we knew when they were coming for the most part. So do we want does anyone want to make a vote to send the draft letter, which is basically the letter that MACC sent, to the committee that is, orchestrating this or voting on this?
So moved. I mean, if people don't need further discussion.
Yeah, so Mark, if you've abstained, then a motion from Jeff, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, do you want to call the roll?
Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Guyer,
Aye.
Gregory,
Aye.
and Wittes.
Aye.
Okay, and then Mark is abstaining.
Mhm.
Okay. So I will get that out tomorrow. I mean, it's literally just putting letterhead on it and sending it off, so that's easy enough. And then the last item on the agenda, I just wanted to let you know, I don't necessarily want to talk about it tonight, that Lucas Environmental, their contract is up June 30th, so they sent us the newest draft. And I put that on the Dropbox along with their contract from the last 2 years, so you can compare them both. And then, if we want to have a meeting in between June and May, if we end up having something and we want Chris and Matt to come on, that'd be probably good. Maybe if we can get it before the 18th, maybe, so that if there are questions or edits needed, we have another time to come back to it and look at it. But I would say look it over. If you have any questions, let me know. If you need anything from Lucas Environmental, I can get that from you. I think the main difference is the rate. I think it was $5 difference. So that's something to take into consideration moving forward, and looking at some of our local fees as well. If we keep up the same kind of expectation and scope, we might need to think about raising some of our local consultant rates, just to keep up with that. But
I have a
So that was a $5 increase?
yeah, I think so.
What are our obligations regarding competitive bids on contracts like this? Do they need to be put up for bid every couple of years or something?
So that was, do you guys usually send it to Aldo? That was my other question that I wanted to.
Originally we did, and then Lucas Environmental was just basically moving dates, right? The
Yeah.
content didn't change. So
Yeah.
based on that, we didn't have him re-review it because
Okay.
the content hadn't changed, other than,
Yeah.
if there was a rate change or something, and then that's something that's in the conservation's purview to negotiate.
Okay.
But to answer Jeff's question, we found that Lucas Environmental to be not only competitive, but aggressive with their pricing in terms of, being on the lower side. And I think the level of expertise we get from them versus what they charge, it's a good value.
And the
I'm
continuity.
And that's another good point,
debating
Russ, yeah.
any of that. I just didn't know if there was some town rule that every 3 years you had to put these things out to bid, because I know organizations have those kinds of rules. So I was just curious.
I don't think so, but if you want, I can double check with Mark Purple just to kind of cover our basis on that aspect.
Yeah, they don't meet the procurement trip any of that, right?
No, because I don't think so. Because I mean, I know we just re-signed with Fuss and O'Neill because that's under planning and it didn't have to go through a bid process. So it was just like, is everyone good? Yes. So I know Mark did look it over, and that was pretty much the extent of it.
Yeah, it isn't like we're reevaluating landscape companies or something for
Yeah.
mowing public grounds.
Yeah. All right, and I think
Anything else for tonight?
I don't think so. So like I said, I've been, going into Southborough about once a week. Obviously when something comes up, a violation or a complaint, which I've been getting a lot of, I don't want to say random ones, but a lot of homeowners reaching out, wondering if things are okay, which is good. It's nice to kind of reach more people. And then, so I've gone out, kind of talked a lot through email, and then kind of just doing the site visits, the active sites, kind of going around. We had, there's some grading being done on the corner of Central and Learn Street. So I sent out a letter to them recently again, because my first one was sent back. And then where's the other one? Oh, there was one on the Oregon Road that I had sent out. So it ended up just being a tree had fallen into the guy's yard. And the angle of what the video is, he's using a little bobcat, and it almost, it looks like he could be clearing out the stream, but going past, there's no disturbance. He definitely just kind of, pulled the trunk that was in his yard and cut it up, and there's nothing else. But other than that, there's still been a lot of talk on Deerfoot Road extension, mostly on lots that aren't under our jurisdiction. So I've just been trying to walk those homeowners through that process and helping them as much as I can, even when we don't necessarily have the information at the purview. But I think one of those homeowners, the ones that we didn't permit, fixed the stone wall. He kind of built it in front of the existing one, so that had a lot of sediment that accumulated that was washing down the road. So a lot of the dirty water was actually ironically coming from there, and everything coming off the sites that we permitted was clean. So that was good to see, and I think that's clearing up now as well. But other than that, we're just chugging along. So if anyone needs anything, I'm obviously around, I'm home, so and I'm in town a bit, so just
I
let
got
me know.
one quick thing, Mark. So you had sent me an email. Mark had asked if I was able to help out with Melissa's review for this year for Personnel Board, and I'm more than happy to.
Great.
And it's due on Monday, and I've got time this weekend to take care of that. One thing, if you could email me last year's, and I have my notes from when we went to the Board of Selectmen about all the stuff that you do, so that'll help out
Yeah.
too. But there's a chance I might have some questions for you, Melissa.
That's fine.
Okay, so I may call you. Unfortunately, I won't have the free time until possibly tomorrow afternoon. I hate to.
That's okay. I have one site visit in Rutland at 1, and then other
Okay.
than that, I'm home. But
Okay, and
doing double
I may not have questions, but in case I do, I just wanted to.
yeah, I'll send you everything from last year and the goals, and then some things that I was kind of thinking about to include as well. So
Excellent.
I'll get
Thank
those to you.
Perfect.
Great,
And Mark,
thanks,
would you like me to route that back through you, and then you can send it off to personnel, or would you like me to?
I may have a few comments depending on
Okay.
what's in there for content. There's a couple of, comments I think
Okay.
I'll probably want to make. So
Then I'll route it back to
I'm
you.
just out of time.
Yeah, no, understood. Okay.
All right.
Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Here a second.
Second.
All right. Russ got the second. Sorry, guys. All right. Watson,
Aye.
Smith,
Aye.
Pete,
Aye.
Geyer,
Hi.
Gregory,
Aye.
Wittes,
Aye.
Basamato.
Hi.
All right. We are adjourned.
Okay, thanks all. Stay healthy.